begin shortly.
Put in another Banner Saga music. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. They had like dubstep.
This is an Austin Wintory composition.
Yeah, that's right. Rejected Banner Saga music.
We use this for our credits music. Lighten the mood at the end of the game.
Okay. How's everybody doing? Thank you very much for coming out. My name is Steve Escalante. I'm the GM of Versus Evil. Just here to basically introduce these guys. This is probably one of the most exciting things, I think, for myself and the team, just to see you guys. We just launched the game on Tuesday, so for those who have not seen Banner Saga 2, I highly suggest you go out and get it. It is, as everyone has said, better than the first. I get to say that. These guys are probably a little bit more modest, but... So we do have a special surprise for you. We have a lot of things going on today. We also launched a book, so for those who are not aware of that, we have a book. We'll have a book signing at the booth at noon today. So please come and meet James, and he would love to meet you all, and free book, fun stuff. James back there waving. And we have a good surprise. So we'll play a quick video, then I'll introduce everyone. This does have spoilers from the first one, so if you are a little bit nervous about that, then close your eyes. But here we go.
I've had 2 years.
Yeah. Serious spoilers. So a big shout out to Kris Straub, who put that together for us. So now we'll get into the fun. I'm going to introduce Jesse Cox, who you may know from YouTube or Twitch. Jesse is going to lead this and talk with the team. I invite everybody to ask questions and participate. We're going to have some fun stuff with the cosplayers as well. So thanks again for coming. Jesse Cox.
Hello, wow. Okay, first off, this is awesome. So thank you for having me here and for creating this that I get to play and be a giant nerd about. So, I mean, I don't even know how you describe your first experience with Banner Saga. It's kind of like, I guess I'm on the Oregon Trail, but not, and I'm leveling up people to die. That's really it. Yeah, so it's fantastic. Okay, so we have on our panel, I guess we have Austin, who is all the way down at the end, being awesome and hiding and showing up late. Matt, Arnie, John, Drew are also here. And they're here to answer questions and to give away spoilers, I assume. I assume that's what we're here for.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Anything you want.
And real quickly, I have a list of community questions, but I don't see this on here right now, and I need to know, can you talk about that book really quickly? That one right there.
The Gift of Hatterborg.
I would love to know.
So James Fideli wrote the book, The Gift of Hatterborg, and he was just a fan of the game. And we have a lot of people writing us like, hey, I do, fiction, and I want to write a book. And he didn't even do that. He just wrote a book. And then we started reading it, and I was like, wow, this is really good, John. We should check this out. And we got further and further.
Half.
Yeah, the first half of the book, and we were like, wow, this is really, really good. So he just kept plodding along and finished up the book, and we said, let's print this. So here it is, The Gift of Hatterborg. It takes place in Strand, and the main character is Eric from Strand, the turtle. Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
What was that?
Available
Amazon
now.
and Barnes & Noble?
What? Woo, go get it.
Where?
Or get it right after the show
And
for
then,
free,
yeah.
and a signed book from James.
Yeah, at the booth, James will be signing free copies.
Okay, so I just want to know that before anything, because I know you mentioned, I was like,
Yeah, we're pretty excited. We just got it
where
now.
can I get
so
more
it's like
lore?
awesome.
All right, good. Okay, so can we really quickly just go down and you introduce yourselves, like what you do, what your role is?
Well, I show up late and apparently hide, according to my intro. So that's
what
fine.
I've heard, yes.
No, I'm Austin. I have the great privilege of working with these folks on the music for the game, and so that's the simplest way to describe what I do. It's a lot of sort of hair pulling, trying to figure out how to do justice to what it is that they are already doing, how to kind of build up the things that they've constructed and add music to hopefully bring it to some kind of life, which is a weird way to put it because it suggests that it's lifeless prior to that, which is not. That's the joy of it, is that, like, I got involved in the game, just in a half a sentence of background on that. During the Kickstarter of the first one, they called me about halfway through the campaign and said, we've overshot our funding within the first couple days, and we're starting to think about things that we can do to kind of expand the scope, and we thought maybe we could do this elaborate score that we originally had presumed we wouldn't be able to do.
We didn't think Austin would call us back, actually. That was the funny thing. We just cold called him. We just finished Journey, and we were like, let's call this dude.
It always mystifies me because it took one look at the Kickstarter and was like, I have to be part of this. Because it was so different from not just other games that I had done personally, but so different from games in general that to me, it was incredibly exciting. So anyway, I can answer more pointed questions about that, but that's a very quick thing.
I'm Drew McGee.
You're clearly Rook.
I'm Rook, also known as Drew McGee. I'm the writer. Did quest writing on the first saga and the writing on the second saga. So, yeah, and he's being humbled because it does feel lifeless in the development cycle. There's obviously a level of life to it, but when the music starts hitting and you're playing through it and you're like, oh my God, this is where it's supposed to be. So yeah, it's a privilege to work with Austin.
And of course, that denies what the inspiration for the music is, which is, of course, what you guys are
It's
doing.
a weird cycle, yeah.
Love you guys. We all love each other.
All right.
This is awkward.
Sorry, I was just overwhelmed by the emotion up here on stage with me.
It's just getting started.
I'm Matt Rhodes. I'm the technical designer. I just came on to Banner Saga for the second one. I wasn't involved with the first one, but very, very happy to be up here with these guys. And my role in the project was implementing abilities, implementing a lot of the battles, kind of designing some of the battles, and trying to make them a little more interesting and involved than the first game.
So if you died in the cave entrance battle in Saga 2, it's Matt.
My fault.
Very difficult battle. I'm Arnie Jorgensen, the art director and co-owner with John.
I'm John Watson, the technical director, which means I do almost all the programming and wrangle other people doing tech work for us. Arnie and I have worked together for a long time, I think. Now, almost 16 years.
Yeah.
We worked in AAA together for about 12 years before we started the Banner Saga.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arnie approached me with an idea and said, would you like to do a game in this visual style? I said, of course.
Yeah.
That actually is a great segue. So how did all of this come about? What was the process of coming up with a game that is, I mean, it draws from so much, and you can see inspirations here and there within it, and how did that all come to be? What was the initial, like, I have the best idea?
Right.
How did that come about?
The origin came with Alex Thomas and I talking, and Alex had this base idea of mixing what we consider the Oregon Trail with King of Dragon Pass, if anybody's familiar with that game. So we were like, okay, we're going to take this as an idea, and we're going to start playing with it, and we moved it from a medieval game, like, you know, from Britain into Norse, and I was like, let's make it a Norse saga, and it started kind of writing itself from there. And we came up with a whole story, and we're like, we're going to do this whole game, and then somebody said, you got to break that up. That's way too long. So we broke it up into 3 pieces, which you're playing the second piece of now.
Yeah, we realized that it would take us 6 years to do the whole game,
Right.
and we would run out of money long before that.
Need even more Kickstarter funding, I think, at that
Yeah.
point.
So if you haven't played King of Dragon Pass and you like the Banner Saga, you should definitely check it out. I know it's on iOS and Steam now, but it was a great inspiration. In fact, we sometimes jokingly called the Banner Saga during development King of Dragon Pass on the road.
Right. But it was a much smaller game. It was really just Alex, who's not with us anymore, John and I doing this game, and then at the last, at the last minute almost, somebody was like, hey, you guys should put it up on Kickstarter, it's free marketing.
Yeah.
Like, and we would have done a much smaller game, but then it kind of blew up on Kickstarter, and we made a lot more money than we ever planned on putting into the game, even though we could easily, scope up to that, but it just took a lot of time to deploy it. So the game really has evolved because of crowdfunding.
Yeah, when we started planning the game, Kickstarter was just a tiny thing. We thought we'd be lucky to get $10,000 or $20,000
Right.
pay for a month or 2 of animation. And if that hadn't happened at that time, the Banner Saga would have been a lot different game. It would have been probably lower, the same fidelity, the same graphic fidelity, but much shorter and much less content.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of thought that went into, I guess there had to have been, right? That went into,
Sometimes
You'd
you'd
be surprised.
Yeah.
well,
Make snap decisions whenever possible.
into the animation in the game and the art in the game. It fits so perfectly with the story that you're telling. Was there any version of that before, or were you just like, this is what we have to do?
It was actually the very first thing we looked at when we were coming up with the story. We knew it was going to kind of be a dark adult story, and I was like, well, we should play off that and juxtapose it with a really beautiful, art. So it's not some grim, dark story that really leaves people depressed. I think people like saying it depresses them, but it's kind of like a happy depressed, like the Smiths or something. So I showed these guys Ivan Durrell, and John was familiar with it, but didn't know he was familiar with Ivan Durrell, the work of Ivan Durrell, the artist from Sleeping Beauty. And they were immediately like, yes, let's do it. So right from that point, we never looked back. And all the characters, I've tried many different ways of rendering the characters in the beginning, because I usually render things more realistically, and I would put shadows and everything on. And I kept coming back to simple lines with flood fill color to make it look like an old cartoon, and that's what we eventually launched with.
And all of us are aficionados of animation in general, across the board. And in particular, we were interested in trying to emulate something that had the rotoscope look, like a Ralph Bakshi or Don Bluth. And we also didn't really have a whole lot of animation expertise on our team, so
Right.
we're like, let's rotoscope it. Let's film ourselves
Well, that's
acting.
what they did in Sleeping Beauty, so we're like, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, you film it, and then you lay it down, and you trace over it, and you get a very realistic-looking motion. If you watch something like Fire and Ice from Ralph Bakshi, it's interesting because you get a very realistic motion, but the lines are very fluid and changing, so it gives you a sort of a surreal feeling to it, and that's one of the things we were trying to emulate.
So we acted it all out in my front yard. We had a ladder, and somebody would hold the camera, and then we had this set up, and John was all the dredge, I'm all the humans. John's fiance did all the females, the archers and everything. So, and then we handed it across to Powerhouse Animation, who rotoscoped it.
And wasn't that like a
the game.
Kickstarter perk?
Yeah, we
Was
ha-
be
That's
someone
true,
who would
yeah.
be rotoscoped?
We
Yep.
had about about four people from
Yeah.
Kickstarter who, in the higher tiers, came and got rotoscoped into the game. And it was funny, the varied reactions, because it's a very physical process to film an an animation of getting hit and dying, someone hits you.
We found the only way to get it. We found the only way to
you
get it. We
die.
had three
With a
people.
sword.
One person's on the camera, one person's acting it, and one person's like hitting them really hard. Like,
Yeah,
this is
it's-
a Varl's hitting it, boom, because you can't fake it.
And then you have to fall as if you're really dead, and it involves hitting your head on the floor and all these other things. So you're chowing down on ibuprofen.
Midway through, they would be saying, "Let me have some ibuprofen," right? So,
And so I paid money for this.
yeah.
How much did this cost?
The
All
proper
free,
way to
all
have
free.
done that, I think the proper way to have done that would have, if they had sort of left their Kickstarter contribution in their will and then
Yeah.
fully committed to the
You know,
rotoscoping
a true
process.
story. I traced my wife's face for Zephyr, and she wanted to be in the game. I was like, great, you're going to be the female Menders. And we stepped up, and I was like, okay, you ready? And I thought she'd been watching us doing it for the whole first game. And I shoved her, and it was like perfect, but she was really like trying to stop from falling. And she falls down, gets up, takes this cane and starts hitting me with it. And that was the end of it. She's not in the game. She walked inside and she was done. And she's like, I didn't know you were going to shove me. I thought you'd been seeing
And there was this 5 months period where you weren't working on the game and you were in court and
It was dark.
It's all for the art.
The question here.
I was just, you filmed all
We-
of
we
this, so it
actually-
is available.
We do have it somewhere. We should, you know what, we've often thought, like, someday we should put up all the outtakes. Like, there's one of Alex he hits, and he's kind of running towards my window, and he's trying to stop, and his leg twists in a little ditch, and he like wipes out into my wall.
It's terrible though,
awesome.
because it's like one of those sports videos where you see somebody break their leg because you see his ankle
Yeah,
actually twist at a 90-degree angle.
it's disgusting.
And it just makes you feel.
Someday we should put up like a video of all the outtakes from that.
Chaley sprained
The
her
Banner
ankle
Saga
too.
has plenty of fun videos.
Yeah.
Chaley sprained her ankle doing the horseborn, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
the horseborn. It's hard.
Oh, I
It's hard to
forgot
rotoscope a person as a four-legged
Right.
thing, but we did it.
She sprouted 4, yeah.
Sprained one of them.
That's the next trailer, is just your outtakes.
Yeah.
It's like, here you go. This is the new one.
After Saga 3, when we have a little time, it'd be fun.
Okay, there's a community question that we have. The map is amazing. That's true. For the Banner Saga, will we ever get to see and explore the whole world or visit every location on it?
Is that the whole world? That's interesting.
Oh.
We know we know it not to be true. I mean, but I think if people continue enjoying the Banner Saga world, we would like to flesh it out for a long time. Like, we love developing the game. We're happy for all the support on it. And the longer we get to do this, the more the world will see. So
Yeah,
we hope so.
We often think that internally, I do at least, and we talk about it. Like, look at all these different places on the map and all these other things that happen. It's a very fertile ground for storytelling, I think.
And we have a lot of stories for it. It's just hard to pack it all into these
Yeah,
games.
we're still a very small team. You're looking at it pretty much.
Yeah.
And of course, the world ends in part 3, so there's,
Spoiler alert.
We
This
told
thing-
you,
is
we
this
told
thing
you
on?
Saga 3 spoiler alerts coming up, didn't we?
Maybe your choices can change that.
No, they can't. You're screwed, I'm sorry. Okay, another community question. Did you ever think your studio was taking on a task that was too big?
Pretty much every day.
Drew, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, it is an everyday sort of question. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, actually, you wake up in the morning and you sort of have that buzz. Some people call it coffee. But anyway, you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, this game's gonna be amazing, and we could keep it going forever. And then 10:30 hits, and you start realizing, like, oh my God, we're never gonna finish, and this is way too much, and we need to cut chapters and chapters and chapters. So yeah, I think it's all the sort of the emotional sine wave that game development consists of. So.
But yeah, I mean, I think everybody has that feeling. On a team this size, we're all used to working on much bigger teams, and it's interesting because when you come down to a small independent studio, Austin's used to this, but nobody's there to help you. If I don't finish the art, I'm the only one. Well, now we have Igor Menko over in Kazakhstan helping out on Saga 2. But like John, if he's not doing the programming, no one does it. You can't rely on somebody else. So if you're sick or something like that, it becomes daunting after a while. But it feels really good, I think, when you're done doing something like this.
I've offered to kick in on the art multiple times.
Right.
Occasionally take a
And
break.
I've written quite a bit of work as well that hasn't seen its way into the game.
I kick in as well, but my art, my temporary art tends to be either magenta.
Actually, it would be good to post some of this stuff too, because John will like do something and put in his own art for a while, and it's like, dude, we got to make sure we take that out before we launch. And likewise, when I'm writing stuff to Drew, and I'm like, hey, this quest, here's an idea, and I'll kind of write it out, like it could go something like this, and it's like
It's
and it
fully
inevitably gets
fleshed out.
tossed.
I mean,
Right, it's
there's
fully fleshed out.
drama and
There's
everything.
like
You
curse
don't have to
words
write so
and
much.
It's always interesting for me when I'm playing the build in LA, and I just am getting these things matter-of-factly without any idea who actually put, I mean, it's some temp art is one thing, but like temp writing, sometimes I'll have this moment where I'm like, this is very different. I don't want to say lesser.
Right. And then you're like,
this is a bold choice.
Should I
Yeah,
ask
but do I say
this final,
something
or-
and then Drew's like, dude, I spent a week on
Yeah,
that. Or Arnie's like, oh, no, that was me. That was just temp. That's just there for. So it's like sometimes I have these moments where I'm like, I'm just going to sit this one out and see.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about Austin, too, as a composer, you would think, or I would think, like, oh, you probably don't play that many games, and Austin's playing constantly. Like, he's playing the game, playing the game, playing the game, playing the game. Not only our game, but, like, multiple other games at the same time. I think half your day is taken up playing games, probably.
That's because
I
he
mean,
only
to me,
sleeps
it's
4 hours a night.
I'm pretty lazy. No, it's an important part of the process because, especially on a game like this, where it's a challenge because the music production on these games is like vastly beyond that of a typical game of this size team and of scope, and so I'm wrangling. I mean, like the number of musicians who play on the score is like 6 times that of every other department of the game combined.
Right. Like when you guys hear the score, this is literally the Colorado Symphony playing in their concert hall for 2 days doing all the music. It's
And
somebody on a synthesizer.
How many people were on stage there? 40?
Oh, more like
50?
60, plus then you have all the soloists like Maluka and Peter Hollins, Taylor Davis, the guys in Iceland, which is,
Arthur.
there's 4 of them. And then I have my weird esoteric people in LA, like the guy that plays the little Viking horn called a buka horn. And,
Sounds a little like a kazoo, but
and,
it's really cool.
yeah, or like a conch shell. Like
Right.
it's literally a lamb's horn that's been hollowed out with holes drilled into it to form finger holes like a recorder.
Isn't he like one of the only guys that
There's
plays
one
this?
guy in the world that does this, and you have to like order it in advance because he has to like harvest a lamb. And
But how cool is it? Like when we got Austin, like this is a buka is an old instrument that people played, So
it's an actual
Yeah.
Viking instrument.
Trying to
Yeah.
keep
He's
Totally
like,
legit,
Austin, what key is this in? All right.
Yeah, I had one
Find the right
option,
lamb.
which was basically F sharp minor, and so that's why all the Godstone pieces all end up falling there because I wanted that instrument. But so yeah, this guy literally,
Also knows
because I
the
had
key
2
of
years
lamb.
on the first game, I was able to tell this guy, and he special ordered this thing, and it was like it came in like 6 months before we had to be done finally. But then he still had it on the second one, so we brought him back.
We commonly say that for the Banner Saga and the Banner Saga 2, in both cases, we bit off just as much as we could chew. In fact, we probably bit off more than we could chew, but all throughout the process of development, we try to be diligent at looking at what we have and cutting things. Even in the Banner Saga 1, halfway through, even with, there's quite a number of characters in Banner Saga 1, well, we cut almost that many out of it halfway through development because we're looking at it like there's too many characters. It's already confusing. We don't need as many characters. For instance, Bolverk is a good example. Bolverk was intended to be a character throughout Banner Saga 1. We had it fully animated and ready to go, but the act of cutting is like the act of editing a film or anything else where what you leave out is often as important as what you put in. So Bolverk got shifted to be introduced briefly at the end of Banner Saga 1 and became one of the main characters of Banner Saga 2. And throughout the process, looking at it, cutting things, keeping it down to...
Kind of like seeing a movie that's 4 hours long, and you're like, that would have been a great movie
Yeah.
if it was 2,
It's very important. What you leave out is very important. But all throughout the process, we were pushing up against what was humanly possible, and pretty much crunching all the time.
Speaking of characters, can you pick your favorite? Pick your favorite child. I want to know.
My favorite is the Stone Singers. It's a characters, although there's a variant of one as one of your main antagonists of Banner Saga 2.
John he was the Stone Singer, so he acted that one out.
Yeah.
John actually, I thought he was joking. He asked me that right before the show, I guess when we were going over the questions, and I said, it's kind of like colors. Like, I don't have a favorite color. just
Well,
like
you
them
have to
all.
answer. And you said.
My favorite character then would have to be, oh gosh, I would guess Ivor.
All right.
He changes the most, and yeah, I like Ivor.
I'm an Alette fan. I think she has a great arc, and she's a really cool character.
Trigby.
Trigby.
Yeah, Trigby.
Trigby is pretty awesome.
He's the most fun to write. He's just,
He's a weirdo.
yeah, you don't really have to make sense. You just get to put down crazy thoughts that are in your head, and it's like, that's Trigby.
Or
so,
does he not make sense?
That's right. So yeah, Trigby is sort of our prophetic kind of character. If you don't know who we're talking about, it's because you didn't kickstart us, because he came with the first game, if you kickstarted us. But no, he's,
Pre-ordered, yeah.
yeah, pre-ordered. So he's in the second game for everybody, because he's
awesome
my
in
favorite.
battle,
and,
too.
Yeah,
He's awesome in battle,
yeah,
yeah.
I love,
great.
the impale move. It's a good one. For me, it's all through the lens of the music, of course. And for that reason, I really do love Bulwark, because I hadn't actually ever scored a sequel before the Banner Saga 2, which I didn't realize until I was halfway through it. I realized, I've worked on games that had some kind of predecessor. I mean, like Assassin's Creed, certainly everyone's favorite in my sort of body of work is the remake of Leisure Suit Larry, and
It was a great soundtrack.
so I've done my share of kind of like swimming in musical waters that have some sort of like precedent, but this was the first time I'd ever actually built on something where I'd already done quite a bit of work myself. And what I loved about Bulwark was he gave me a chance to go somewhere really different from the first game, somewhere much darker and weirder, and but like loving its own darkness. And that's where I loved working with Drew on this, where it was like, okay, can you make this make sense in the writing? Because I want to do this with the score, but I don't currently have a justification for it in the story, so can you just make that part of the story? And he's like, sure. I assume.
So Bulwark plays a buka horn now. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's true for Bulwark in general, because since Banner Saga 2 follows two caravans, the caravan of the hero, either Rook or Alette, and then the caravan of Bulwark, these people have totally different outlooks on the world. So the heroes, Rook or Alette, have a essentially good outlook. They want to help people. They have compassion for people, whereas Bulwark is a mercenary, and he's very pragmatic and somewhat evil. So there's a huge contrast between the two caravans, and that comes through in the music as well.
Well, and I said to Drew, I said, can we make it so that he's a mercenary, but he sees it as like a weirdly sacred thing? And can I make it have an almost religious quality?
Yeah.
But it's like religious in a super dark way. And things like, can they sing in battle, but then never outside of battle?
Yeah.
To like contrast them from the other caravan who sings at the drop of a hat. I was like, can we go an extra mile and make Bulwark's caravan actually offended by that?
Yeah.
That they think it's like weirdly sacrilege that you would sing anywhere other than during the sort of
Yeah,
sacred act
That's
of
why,
battle.
that's why the Ravens are silent at Godstone.
In Godstones,
Yep,
the
exactly.
heroes caravans in Banner Saga 1 and 2, every time you reach a Godstone, there is a new piece of folk music that you hear them sing.
Which is then added to your camp after that.
And then thereafter, whenever you camp, if you sit in camp or a village for a while, your caravan will just start playing some music, and it'll be from the collection of Godstones that they've passed up to that point. And it builds on that in Banner Saga 2 with even more Godstones. With Bulwark's caravan, when you camp, nobody's singing because it would be,
Because it's wrong.
it's totally wrong.
Ravens don't do that.
They would just, something bad would happen to you probably if you started singing in Bulwark's camp.
Yep.
Oh, you want to fight? I see.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a universal signal for battle.
It's game on.
Yeah.
So, before we get into any more community questions, are there any questions from you out there? If you have one, there are microphones all around in the back, so you can just run back there and grab it and just ask away and orderly queue up.
Oops.
It was not
Wait for it.
on
This-
yet.
that mic is not on.
live.
But yes, my name is Jordan Cameron. I write for blackmanandrobin.com, and I
Yeah.
really,
Oh,
Yeah, we're
awesome,
very-
dude. Thank you very much.
yeah, I really
we love reading
love
it.
the Banner Saga factions. I know that you guys are about to end the world, but before you do we have another chance of a cool spin-off game?
We loved playing multiplayer. We love factions. The only reason that factions has been neglected is because, there's just limited bandwidth to do stuff. So we put all our effort into doing the single player story. We would love to do something that focuses on battle, focuses on multiplayer battle, and really scratch that itch. But
we actually have 4 whole designs ready to go for that. And John and I loved working on factions. We'd love to get back to it someday.
yeah, we spent some time last year actually designing, getting some competing designs for a kind of a reboot to that. See where we could go with that. It hasn't started development.
Flush it out into a full game this time.
But
know,
you asked
rather
also
than
about
content.
spin-offs, like whole other things, right? Like Telltale do a Tales from Banner Saga game or something.
We're
Which
open,
I would be so in
We're
favor of.
absolutely open to the idea. In fact, we have a board game called Warbands, which will be out in a month. We kickstarted it, I guess, about 6 months ago.
Yeah, for anybody that hasn't seen that, come down to our booth. We got it set up, and it's right there. It's
So if you're-
fantastic looking.
if you're
Awesome
into playing-
miniatures.
Yeah, if you're into playing games on a table, we do have that.
It's a different system than the Banner Saga 2.
It'll be shipping out in about a month.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, just going back to what you said about cutting things and the old writing adage, you have to murder your darlings. What was your favorite thing, music, art, story-wise, you had to cut out? How much did it emotionally destroy you, and were you able to sneak any of it back into Banner Saga 2?
I don't know if this is too destroying. It was disappointing for me. Juno was a character we had fully animated and available to play as a playable character. But as we developed her character, she became too powerful. It'd almost be like playing Gandalf, and it wouldn't make sense. And so that was a little bit disappointing for me.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to say we will be, but Juno will be in Saga 3. For me, it was the transition from, if you remember in the first game, when they went from Grafheim down to Einertoft, the Varl band, and we just met them there. We didn't see that journey. Originally, we had that journey in the game. And it was just it was like a segue, and it didn't quite fit into the story anymore, and it felt like an attachment, so we took it out. But that's the kind of stuff someday we'd love to do, like DLC pack, download this journey.
Yeah, that goes back to Jordan's question as well. That's something that happened. That would be a great story to tell. We could probably tell it in maybe 3 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
Side stories or something.
Yeah.
I think you're all really awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll open my question to the same note. Thank you. Really, really enjoyed your work.
Thank you. You guys enable us to do it.
And then I guess I have to beg for a favor, if that's possible. I don't know that it's possible to beat the first game on hard without the Kickstarter pre-order character to get the achievement that you unlock every battle having never lost. I know you can go in there and edit the actual files to add the character back in. But if I might beg, could you guys release that character now that the sequel's out?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, we made it an exclusive, but it's been 2 years now, 2.5 years now, so maybe that expires after a while. Maybe you can...
You're going to get some super angry pre-orderers from 2.5 years ago. I thought I got something special.
I don't want anyone else to have this.
Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should have like one of those secret menus that restaurants have, and we could just put it out somewhere and never
Banner
make an
Saga animal
announcement.
style?
And just hopefully people find
The
it.
Triggery thing is interesting because we wanted to give people something, special as exclusive. But as soon as we did it, we were like, oh man, this character is so good.
Once we played the game, we were like, oh man,
We really
it sucks people don't play this.
regretted that.
Which is why we didn't do it for this game. We didn't have any exclusives
So
like that.
in Banner Saga 2, Triggery shows up whether you had him or not, And in all the other platforms on iOS and console, Triggery's there, So he's a great character. I agree.
For your consideration. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm a big supporter of the PlayStation Vita, and I was wondering what the current status is on that.
Well, so Sony gave us some help with that and found a porting house to do that for us, and they're basically managing the project and producing it. I don't have any up-to-date information on that. I don't know what the ETA is on that.
But it is certainly in development.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
that?
soon. I mean,
Soon, yeah, soon. It's been being worked on for a little while now.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for creating such a beautiful story experience. I totally felt like a 6-year-old watching a Disney movie all over again. It was great. And tying into that, I was kind of wondering, have you guys ever considered or mulled over the idea of perhaps creating a film short or an animated movie, maybe team up with a studio, because it's such a beautiful experience. I can totally see an hour and a half of just
We
going
would
into
love
it.
to. We were trying to finish up Saga 2, and then like once we finish Saga 2, we can go out and maybe meet some people, make some contacts. That's kind of the realm we're in now. We would love to have somebody approach us, or we're going to try to approach some people about that.
Yeah, it's we would love to do it. It's really a matter of finance, you know, because those things are, animation is expensive. Even the animated scenes within the games, in Banner Saga 2 we added a lot more. You know, the per second cost of doing a fully animated stuff is a lot, and we would love to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yep, good.
Arnie had mentioned before, like, each person is basically that team for the department, like art, Arnie does art, John does programming. It feels like there could be some extreme bottlenecking in that type of system.
No, extreme is too light of a word.
Correctly deciphered what we're saying. Yeah.
Can you guys, I guess, describe how that process, like, and how you try to alleviate any of that bottlenecking?
I try to alleviate it by overworking.
Yeah, exactly. A number of hours in a day.
That is actually true, and it's not really even a joke, but we meet every single morning. We all live all over the place. Music for Stoic, the music is done in LA, Drew's up in Dallas, Matt and I are down near Austin, John's in Seattle, our voiceover is done in Iceland, sound done in Australia. So, but we as the internal team meet every morning at 11 o'clock, and we have the meetings going over what did you do yesterday, what are you doing today? And that helps alleviate it, but also it really helped that we'd all been managers at large companies, so we kind of see things coming. Oh, I know you're going to need that next week, I'll work on it today.
But one of the things we're considering for Banner Saga 3 is adding another member to the team, which would be a production, somebody who specializes in production, a producer, to help us keep everything flowing and to help us focus on our individual parts of the craft and take a lot of the production overhead off of us. It's something we're considering to make it go more easily. But the bottlenecking is a big deal. It's a big deal for me too, because, you know, everybody depends on me and my tools and my support to get things done. And if the game breaks, there's nobody else who can fix it. So I feel a lot of that pressure as well.
I think one thing, having such a small team, you know, we all are talking to each other all the time, and so even when there are bottlenecks, you know, at least everyone is communicating with each other really well, and you can kind of at least have some patience because of that. You know, it's not like in a big team where things just sort of magically appear or disappear and you're not exactly sure why.
And on the flip side, one of the benefits to having such a small team is that things can happen, decisions and things can happen very quickly, things can change very quickly. So if we have a problem with the game, something's not working right, something's not playing right, doesn't feel good, we're running out of time for something, we can sit down, talk about it, and in 20 minutes, we can just decide what we're doing. We can look at it, make a decision, and we're good. In other situations, like being on a big team, for instance, on Star Wars The Old Republic, there were 600 people working on that game when it launched. And if you want to make a decision, it's some process. You know, it's meetings, committees.
It affects all these different teams, and you got to meet with all of them.
So it's really satisfying sometimes to sit down and come to a decision that we feel good about and say, this is what we're doing. You know, we don't have to ask anybody's permission. This is what we're doing.
Every now and again, months later, we'll have a meeting. We'll be like, no, we totally talked about that, and that's what we're doing. No, I don't remember that. So a producer would really help with that.
Yeah, so we make quick decisions, but no one's there to record them. So yeah.
We got it. All up here.
Was there any bottlenecking on the writing and music side?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I am the bottleneck for the writing. I mean, if something's supposed to be written and it's just taking me longer, or I don't feel inspired. No, if I just don't have it written, then it can't go into the game. A battle can't be shaped around it. So yeah, it's totally. We had tools issues on that front as well. Things were reacting differently than I had specifically put them in, or at least the way I thought I put them in. So yeah, any of that bottlenecks Matt from doing his work.
I curse Drew on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Curse his name.
And the dependencies go in all directions too. So this battle can't be scripted until the story around it is known, but the story around it can't be really known until the characters involved and the new abilities, the new enemies involved in this battle are known.
And then the
music
composers
can't
over
be-
here are asking for special things to be written into the story.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I actually, I'm uniquely not encumbered by the bottlenecks, or insofar as I don't think I could bottleneck you guys unless I was delivering the score late and holding up the
That's true.
launch. But
Although we do get some redundancy in that we'll tell you one thing and you'll score it, and then 6 months later, like, oh no, we took that scene out. Like,
Yeah,
how
well,
did-
that-
The Einertoft Bridge crossing, I think in Saga 1 was like an 8-minute queue or something ridiculous.
there's been a couple
right?
moments where it was described to me on paper what was going to
Because
happen.
mentally we're going, it's a majestic, long crossing.
Yeah.
In game time,
We're
it's
thinking like 20 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah, there've been a
And
few
he's
of
going
those where
majestic, long, God,
I dramatically
10 minutes.
overshot. But then there's been a few where it worked to our favor, where I wrote a piece based entirely, or I wrote a section of the game entirely off of your description, and then you guys were like, oh, now that we hear what you wrote,
Right.
I have a whole other idea of now how I want to execute that now to kind of like fulfill what this music is making me imagine, as opposed to what I was originally imagining, which is funny to me because the music was written based on what I presumed they were imagining. So we're kind of like,
Yeah.
there's like this third object we're both aiming at now that's not, neither of our things. But it does, the closest thing to a bottleneck that I would say I experience is that I get this weird self-conscious thing when I'm on the team where I'll want something from someone on the project, but it always feels, from my standpoint, to be such small fish to fry relative to what they are actually dealing with. So like I'll call Drew and be like, I really need lyrics on this Godstone, and he's like trying to decide the fate of the game. And I'm like, but there's this one section where I have like 40 seconds of singing in Icelandic, and it'd be super cool. Or like I'm telling John, there's a trigger point during, world travel where the music is triggering too late and the French horn solo is coming in halfway through and then suddenly fading out, and it's driving me crazy. And John's like fixing game-breaking bugs in that moment where it's like, if I don't fix this will not ship and we'll all die. And I'm like, yeah, but that French horn solo is kind of getting cut short, man. And so it's not a bottleneck but yeah, it makes me like not want to say something, but then I think, well, no, but I can't give them like half of my passion on this, so I end up just putting it, I file a bug report for it anyway.
Sure. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Great game.
Hi, I was wondering, I really like the Norse mythology on this. I was wondering if you do other time periods, or like, I was thinking like a Homer's Odyssey would be awesome.
Yeah, if we've ever thought about doing different mythos or...
Yeah.
I would like to do some of that. I mean, I kind of grew up with the interest in Norse mythology that we're obviously kind of...
Arnie Jorgensen grew up with Norse interests.
And my son's name, oddly enough, is Ivor, and so you can see where all that stuff's coming from.
Are you going to cut his arm off?
I think, I love all that stuff, but I think with a team this small, we just have our hands full right now with one game. I think if Banner Saga sales ever really trail off, maybe we'll try something else.
Mythology is definitely a rich ground for doing stories. The mythologies of the world are so creative, and they reveal a lot about human thought in those time periods when it was invented.
Yeah, add some Lord of the Rings stuff in there too.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
How are you guys today?
Great.
So a kind of mundane question when it comes to the game in general and the whole series. Would multiplayer or co-op be a viable option in your series?
I think not for the Banner Saga series, but for the Banner Saga Factions type game is what we really want to do that for. That's our platform for doing that, and we have lots of different ideas. It would be a different style of gameplay without the travel and stuff, but it would be city building and co-op and battles, and it would be a little more throw in some PvP. So we have big designs for that. Probably not for the Banner Saga.
All right, thank you.
Hey guys, so you guys have a phenomenal game, and what really draws me into it is the story and the music and like all the culture that really goes into it. So one of the things that I was wondering, how much time during game development do you spend researching things like mythos and like all the mythology and like how the combat really was, how life was, and how the music would have been?
Well, the music could be answered by Austin, but for the previous stuff, it was basically during the original writing and plotting of the whole arc, which we know, and we know where we're going, but the ins and outs of getting there are changing as we go. So that whole original plot line is when we were really studying the Norse mythology and what kind of classes do we want, what would really feel Viking with the the shield walls and things like that. Now that we've plotted it all out, probably very little. I mean, we still kind of kick in and read some stuff from time to time, send each other links to it, but it's not really a part of our daily routine.
Well, you see, especially during the development of the first one, you see Arnie has all these art books and picture books and history books full of images and historical images, and we all read and I went all the way down the rabbit hole of reading everything available on Norse mythology, and to the point where I was an amateur expert on the topic. And
you can see, as cartoony as our game is, we still don't have large, oversized axes. And so we're trying to stay. It's kind of cartoony version of it, but we're trying to keep things still, realistic. The size of shields, that we're not doing shoulder pads on the men.
And the fact that it's inspired by
no horn helmets, right? Things like that. Good point.
But the fact that it's inspired by Norse mythology, but not trying to emulate it exactly, gives us a lot of freedom. To these different elements of the game are like, oh, that's a lot like Jormungandr. It's not. Right. But there's some similarities.
Or the Jotun are like Varl. The Menders are like the Norns.
All the chapter titles come from the Poetic Edda, so they're lines from
true.
it. So we obviously are looking at things. All the names are of all the characters are supposed to lend itself to some aspect of their character. So if you're up on your Nordic names, then you'll be able to say like, oh, this guy's Swift because his name is. I don't know what it is.
Also, if you look on the map, we were helped by somebody reached out to us saying, hey, I'm a professor of ancient languages and I'd like to help out, and his name was Einar from Norway, and we were like, great, man. So he helped us name the map nodes, and we named a city after Einar Toft.
Yeah, and just on the musical front, it became clear to me very early on the first game that it wasn't actually Norse mythology. It was just a vaguely inspired by Norse or not vaguely, but Norse mythology inspired world entirely of its own. Mm-hmm. And so that to me gave me license to not aspire to anything authentic, which is helpful because I looked into it, and from a sort of archaeological standpoint, there's no concrete definition of Viking music. They have found instruments like the buka horn, and they can infer things based on how they were built, therefore how they were played, and therefore what kind of music probably sounded best on them. But because you're talking about music that's not notated, there is no way to actually know what it sounded like. But when I realized I didn't need to be beholden to that anyway, I said, you know what, I'm just going to try to carve out my own thing and just do something that feels right to this world and to these characters.
Which is, when you have an orchestra, it's all brass. It's like there's no strings.
Yeah, that was part of the creative conceit on the first game, where I started writing music, and I realized I had presumed an orchestral approach, which is weird because I don't typically do. I typically just try to. I have no default position with my scores. I try to just say, what does the game want, and if it's all kazoo, then so be it. But in this case, I started writing orchestral music just to kind of see what it would feel like. Like this is 4.5 years ago. And I realized I'm not really using the strings. And that's when I just thought entirely, almost like an intellectual exercise. I just said, what if I just take them out? And I just can, so it wasn't actually really inspired by the Norseness of it, because again, that's not drawing from anything historical. It just seems to naturally gel that a bunch of brass, winds, and percussion feels inherently, it just kind of worked as soon as I took it out. It's challenging because the strings tend to be the crutch when writing for orchestra, because they're the only people that don't need to breathe, and so they can play endlessly. And so, but I think that's a problem. That's a liability as a composer, because you end up leaning on it too hard. Plus, I had just finished Journey, which is like string bonanza. So I was like, I got to get this out of my system. So what can I write for everyone but that? And that's quite literally what I did, except for the one violin, which was Taylor Davis. Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that old animation really inspired you. And when I think of old animation, I think of uncut Colombian nightmare fuel for children.
Yes.
Specifically uncut, too.
Yeah, something that'll keep a 6-year-old up all night crying. So I guess
I think that's all our goal.
Favorite scenes like that, and did any directly inspire something in the Banner Saga?
It was more of pulling directly from Disney's Sleeping Beauty is what we were originally looking at. And so sort of, we went more realistic with our characters, they went more cartoony, but it was that kind of feel with the simple flood fill color, the simple lines, and then the way they moved wasn't made up and kind of janky, and it wasn't bouncy, squishy, it was done from life, and that's what we tried to do.
And the environments are done in a very stylized, the Ivan Earl style, a very stylized manner with the long shadows and the sharp angles.
And Ivan was the art director, and a lot of times the outside shots of Sleeping Beauty look different than the interiors, which they had different painters for the interiors and stuff. And we actually did that too, where our interiors and a lot of our backgrounds are kind of realistically, I don't want to say that, but much more realistically than the really graphic shots we have outside.
Thank you.
So we're just trying to marry it into that zone somewhere. And I think somewhere along the way we've kind of moved it and morphed it, but that was the original intent.
That's our explicit target. And then, of course, we're big fans of all sorts of other animation, like the Studio Ghibli stuff in particular.
Yeah, but not
even
but
though
not
we're not going for that, but it's all in the back of our mind.
But I guess it's kind of like the music and kind of like the Norse mythology that we use that as a jumping off point. But we didn't do exactly that. We were trying to do kind of like Sleeping Beauty, but and the intent was never to do exactly that, but that's the feel you should have,
Thanks.
Yeah, I think the story is what carries the primary weight of the idea of the heavy, dark thing that keeps you awake at night. That's the art direction is in defiance to the darkness of the narrative, which is so kind of unforgiving.
Right, and it's funny though, in the art, it's a lot of people say the Banner Saga is really bright and really colorful, and it's actually funny, if you color pick the colors we use, they're extremely desaturated. But for some reason, when you pull them together, it looks like a very colorful world. It's actually desaturated.
Is that a last question, I see?
Yeah, I assume so. I just, sorry, I'm a bit jet lagged. Did you read the Icelandic sagas for inspiration? Are you familiar with those?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's what John was just saying. He was
the elder the prose and poetic sagas. Edda's
saga, stuff like that.
And the Volsung sagas, Egil's saga. Like all of those were devoured by us.
And the strangeness of those, the strangeness of these sagas is where we're going to be going with our story. So the story in the very beginning of Saga 1 kind of sets up our world. Number 2, as you can see, gets a little bit darker and weirder, like what's going on here. And then 3 is going to get even stranger and stranger. It's going to become the full weird Norse saga, thing by the end of it.
Yeah. Well, I sort of mean the family sagas, like Njal's saga.
Njang saga?
Njal, I forget how it's pronounced, but it's well, you haven't read you've only read the mythology, or have you also read the biographical stories?
Actually, if I'm not really, I haven't read those because I don't recognize them. But if you have our reach info, if you write down a list, I'd love to get into it.
All right, I'll see if I can do that.
Thank you. And Drew would like it even more, maybe.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, the last thing we definitely want to do as I push this thing off all of the cosplayers who are here, if you would please stand up so we can see your awesome outfits, because you guys look amazing.
You too.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, if you can act, no, don't just stand up. Come right here out in front.
I feel like you count in this.
So we can all see.
I think Drew needs to stand up as well here.
Yes.
Come on,
This is just what he wears, by the way, while he's working.
That's right.
He hasn't taken this off in 2 years.
Method writing.
Method writing. I love it.
Method writing.
No arrows? You know what? You should do it, man. There's gonna be a photo.
I'm not giving you an option.
Drew's sister
these are
made
great.
this like a year and a half ago, and we're like, dude, you gotta wear that. You gotta bring it.
Oh, man, so awesome.
We should bring them up here, man.
Oh,
They're on the light.
yeah.
You guys come over here. Hey, Lance. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Hold on, hold on. But there's no light in there. Is there a light there?
Yeah,
come down here.
Can we like shift everyone down in front of here for the light?
You gotta see some of these. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
As someone who can barely do his own laundry, this completely blows my mind.
Right? This is great.
Oddly looks great.
You're gonna see all of us like from the waist down.
We have discounted codes, right, at our booth too? We have some of those. We can ask Steve.
Is that confirmed?
I don't know, Steve. Do we have discounted codes or something at our booth for Saga 2?
All right.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's possible. It's so amazing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If you stick around, they have some things for you they want to give you guys because it's.
Yeah, for the cosplayers.
Yeah, for just being
And anybody else, we
amazing.
have discounted codes for Saga 2 at our booth.
All right, well, thank you to all the cosplayers. Thank you to everyone for coming to watch. And thank you to these fun gentlemen for being amazing and creating a great series. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming, guys.